Thanks for clicking on Wayne.com for another edition of Inside the Zone. Blake Sebring from the News Sentinel, Glenn Marini from Wayne TV. A lot to talk about this week because the Komets had a relatively successful weekend. Looked pretty good on Saturday and Sunday, getting wins. They go 2-1 over the weekend with a win over Kalamazoo, and then win one on Sunday against Evansville at home.
They look pretty good at home too.
Exactly.
Which is that's nice to see. You know, I mean, they've been so inconsistent at home of late, and that was nice to see.
When you take a look at this weekend as a whole, pretty good offensive numbers, specifically Saturday, Sunday. What did you see offensively that has the Komets clicking? Because some of it is returning personnel, and some of it is guys just stepping up and playing better.
Well, and it's guys going back to their normal positions. I mean, Paul Crowder allows Matthew Pistilli to go back to the wing. He allows Brett Perlini to go back to the wing, and the three of those guys were just awesome this weekend. You got, with Sean Sidlowski getting called up, you could throw up your hands and think, okay, now do we put Lowry and Mbach with somebody else? Well, no. What they did was they put C.J. Severin between Mbach and Schrock, and they were great. I mean, it worked out really well. Severin stayed hot. Mbach scored a couple, and Schrock was great defensively. I think they were all +3 for the weekend, you know. And then the third line with Kyle Thomas and Kyle Lowry and Christian Ouellet, who should be named Kyle, you know, or Matt Lowry.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it should be. It worked out pretty good on it as a checking line.
When you take a look at Crowder, just what does his, you mentioned how kind of the trickle-down effect that it has as far as the lines go, but what does he mean on his own line? What does he mean to this team? Because, you know, you mentioned how he kind of sets everything up, and he was a guy that, because he'd been injured for so long, we hadn't talked a lot about, but really is a good add, essentially, for this team at this point of the year.
Well, he's a guy who I mean, I can't stress enough allowing Pistilli to go back to wing. I mean, Matt was playing center, and he was doing okay, but he's a winger. I mean, he's got the best shot on the team, and he couldn't get it off at center because he was worried about playing defense and controlling the puck up the middle. Whereas on the wing, all he's got to do is shoot, you know, and he got a couple goals this weekend. I mean, he got 3, I think, and it just, when Paul's on the ice, everything slows down. He wins the faceoff. You don't got to go chasing it for half of your shift to get the puck back, and you can just keep things going. They control the puck in the other team's zone because they'd start with the faceoff win, and that was half the battle right there. And then Pistilli and Perlini could just kind of cycle down low, and Crowder's big, and he takes up room, and he's a wicked passer. And it's like he and Pistilli sometimes had two-man games going, and then Perlini comes in and cleans up.
Well, like a War Memorial Coliseum Nostradamus, you started writing about C.J. Severin, and he had another huge weekend. What can you say about the role that he's taken upon himself? And a lot of it has to do with the hip being healthy and also position change for him.
Well, he had the opposite effect of Paul in that, you know, Pistilli, when he was in the center, he became a little bit less of what he was because he's so strong on the wing. You're kind of limiting him by making him play center. You put CJ at center, and it actually makes him blossom because he's got the puck more. He gets more shots. He's always aggressive on the forecheck anyway. He's even more aggressive when he's in the middle. He's not worried about, oh, I can't miss this guy, you know, because you know Schrocky's back there to cover him up, you know. So he can be aggressive and create things and go hard to the net and be a jerk and be a rat out there just like Schrocky too, you know. And he can slash and hack and just drive the defense nuts.
That's an annoying line to play against.
Oh, how many times did you see the defenseman this week curl back with the puck because, oh crap, that hole isn't there anymore, you know, with those guys out there. And you know the way Mbach hits, you know, I mean, it's a fun line to watch, I think.
When you take a look at some of the forwards that they lost this weekend, or really this week, Mears gets called up. And then on Saturday, it's Sidlowski getting called up. How does that affect them in the short term?
I don't think it affects them at all with Mears. I mean, he was really struggling and really having a hard time finding his niche again. Sidlowski's a huge loss. I mean, it was so much fun watching Lowry try to figure out where to play with Sid and Mbach because Sid and Mbach play like centers.
Yeah, they're maniacs all over the ice.
Right. When you play with those guys, your center part is you take the draw and then you go to the wing, you know, and you kind of sneak in behind. Or the puck's in the corner, you go get it as a center, whereas normally as a center, your job is to go blue line to crease back and forth, you know. But with those guys, because they control the puck so much, your job is to find the holes in the defense and just get open, and you'll get the puck. So it was different this week with Matt. And Matt, I thought yesterday had his best game. I mean, he was hitting and arguing, and he was drawing penalties, and he had a couple assists against Evansville. I mean, he was driving them nuts.
Well, one guy that Komets fans certainly excited to see back in a Komets sweater, Pat Nagle this weekend. The trickle-down health effect from the Red Wings to Grand Rapids. Now Nagle back down after playing pretty well for Grand Rapids. What does it mean to have him back in goal for the Komets? Because you got a little bit of a taste of him on Friday night, but you saw him throughout the weekend.
Well, and we talked about how good the offense was to start, when actually the defense was what really won those 2 games for them, because Pat was not sharp. Pat hadn't played he played 1 game and in like 7 shots of another game up there in like 3 weeks. So he was rusty. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was as rusty as if I got off this chair and tried to play.
Well, come on now.
Yeah, I know, but the first shot on goal Friday night, he knows he should have had. There was the Evansville's first goal on Sunday, he knows he should have had. And he admitted it. I mean, he said, any problems were mine. The guys played great in front of me, and they really did. They held Evansville to 26 shots yesterday, and I think they held Kalamazoo to 24 on Saturday. That's pretty darn good. And Pat was fighting the puck. I think the second shot against him from Kalamazoo hit the post, and I don't think he ever turned his head. I mean, I don't think he saw it.
Yeah.
I mean, so he's just going to keep getting better. That's what he does not like about getting called up, is if you don't play, it takes you 2 or 3 weeks once you get back down to feel like you're normal again. Mm-hmm. Because you've got to relearn everything, and you're thinking too much instead of just reacting.
Well, this week's schedule is interesting because it seems like you're used to playing the same teams all the time, yes. But going down to Florida on Wednesday night to play Florida, a good Florida team. Actually, If you look at the Stanford ratings, this is the number 2 team right behind Toledo and right above the Komets.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating matchup because Nagle used to play for Florida, too, so that'll be interesting to see how that works.
Well, you've got Florida, and then you've got 2 games at Orlando Friday and Saturday.
And Orlando's playing great right now, 8-2.
Yeah, and these 2 teams, they played Orlando back on November 29th, but considering the way the rosters move, it's like, could it well be last season? I mean, there's no real carryover for that. So when you take a look at these games, these are teams that they have not seen a lot. So what do you really think is going to be the big key this week? Because,
well, the guys
3 road games.
The guys were saying that these are important games not only for the Komets to get points, but to prevent them from getting points too, so that they can pick up ground on them in the standings, or maybe get a little bit of cushion. The Komets are a point up on Florida right now, and the playoffs are an awful long way away. But you might be looking at home ice advantage in these 1 game with Florida on Wednesday. And then if Orlando's been so hot, if you can beat them, then you're feeling really good about yourselves. Mm-hmm. But it's going to come down to special teams. The better you get, the better the competition you play, the more it comes down to special teams. And right now the Komets, they've had so much turnover there. It's like they got to get back to being comfortable again with special teams a little bit. They had more guys in front of the net on the power play this weekend, which was good. They just didn't get to any rebounds. But they were guys trying for it, and they were getting decent shots. So we'll see what happens with that. They did get a couple goals, but it wasn't like every time out you felt like they were a threat.
Right.
And defensively, they got to get Pat back to normal,